Agreed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The honourable The honourable member for Denison is O'Connor. On the main motion.
Madam Speaker, what an extraordinary situation we were in. Yesterday, when the House is given an opportunity to debate want of confidence over the well-being of children in this state, the government restricts the debate to 1 p.m. And today, when we move a want of confidence in an inept primary industries minister, the Liberals believe that the House can actually explore this issue within under an hour. And what it does, and the Minister knows this, is it shuts Tasmanians out yet again. It shuts out people who have not been given a voice by this government, who have been ignored by this government, who made submissions in relation to Oakhampton Bay and were ignored by this government, who are frustrated and angry and, in fact, yes, they're frightened. And they're frightened, Madam Speaker, because this government, this minister, have approved fish farming in a pristine waterway in Mercury Passage, and for the community who's concerned about it, they are frightened of the damage that that will do to East Coast waters. They love that place and they fear what the Liberals in government are doing to compromise the marine environment on the east coast of Tasmania. So we are being asked to test confidence in a minister who's shut Tasmanians out and done everything the industry has asked him to do except properly regulate it. Madam Speaker, we are being told that this matter can be dealt with in under an hour. Madam Speaker, we could talk all day about how little confidence we have in this minister. There are so many questions which have not been answered. It is a fact that this minister has ignored warnings from ex-fish farmers, scientists and conservation groups, as well as the Greens, that this minister has championed the industry every step of the way despite knowing the enormous damage it was doing in Macquarie Harbour. In fact, not only knowing about the damage, not only knowing about that, but failing to properly regulate and, in fact, going against advice to increase the biomass cap in Macquarie Harbour, Madam Speaker. This is a minister who is incapable of controlling this industry because the industry has control of this minister. We see it all the time, Madam Speaker, in every act, and it is the marine environment which is paying the price here. Now let's go, Madam Speaker, to a short history of the woeful approach to regulating this industry and, in fact, managing this industry on the part of this minister. Ever since he came into government, every decision he has made has been at the expense of the marine environment. So we had, in January 2015, Huon Aquaculture wrote to the Minister's Department calling for the immediate destocking of Tassals Franklin lease in Macquarie Harbour after pollution indicator species were found 4 kilometres around the lease. And Huon noted the potential negative impact this issue has for the industry and the government, and it's enormous. In February 2015, a month later, a Macquarie Harbour status report indicated an overall decline in dissolved oxygen since September 2014. A fish kill at Tassals lease was also reported to Minister Rockliff's department outside the time frame required by the licence conditions, but no further action was taken and the details have never been made public. And this goes to a complete lack of transparency on the part of this minister and his government in relation to this industry. In March 2015, the Greens tabled leaked emails from Huon Aquaculture and Petuna to Minister Rockliff and the Premier describing serious environmental and fish health warning signs and urging the minister not to approve Tassals' request for an increase in production in the harbour, and yet it fell on deaf ears. In April 2015, Minister Rockliff commissioned the Cawthron Institute to review Macquarie Harbour data. In May 2015, a month later, Madam Speaker, 85,000 fish suffocated in Macquarie Harbour. And that is on this minister's head. In July 2015, the Senate inquiry into Tasmania's aquaculture industry, which was initiated by the Greens Senator Peter Whish-Wilson, was labelled by the Premier, Mr Hodgman, as a witch hunt, and of course it was condemned by state Labor. In August 2015, the Minister rejected calls to wind back production in Macquarie Harbour, stating, "I have no concerns about the health of Macquarie Harbour." This is why we have no confidence in this minister. Madam Speaker, the greatest cheerleader for the industry that it's ever seen. In August 2015, a rare chronic disease called mycobacteriosis that can cause mortality in fish was found in farmed salmon in Macquarie Harbour. An internal discussion paper prepared by the Minister's Department and obtained by the ABC through RTI revealed that an increased rate of disease was recorded in 2014 and was linked to degraded environmental conditions in the harbour. In September 2015, the Minister responded to the Cawthron Institute report, yet there are no penalties for fish farm companies. None of the improvements to impact monitoring that were recommended by the Cawthron are adopted, and the government responds by commissioning further research. In January 2016, the Director of the EPA wrote to salmon producers saying a mass fish death incident in Macquarie Harbour was something they should be prepared for. And this, remember, is the same minister, this is the agency, the EPA, that must, to some extent, report to this minister. This is the same minister who said he had no concerns about the health of Macquarie Harbour. In April 2016, the minister responded to the continued build-up of evidence of pollution indicator species found some 7.5 kilometres from fish farm sites in Macquarie Harbour by removing regulations on pollution indicator species pending the outcome of, quote, further research. In April 2016, a further Macquarie Harbour status report, independently commissioned by Human Aquaculture, recommends poor dissolved oxygen levels be mitigated through oxygenating cages, restricting feeding times and minimising stocking densities. Instead, what did this minister do, Madam Speaker? He approved an increase in salmon production in Macquarie Harbour from 20,000 tonnes to 21,500 tonnes a year. In August 2016, he tries to make Tasmanians think that this is all hands-off and independent. To distance himself from the damage he's causing in Macquarie Harbour, the minister pushed responsibility for monitoring environment and stock levels onto the EPA, and that, of course, was just prior to Four Corners going to air last year with absolutely damning evidence of an industry that has not been properly controlled, and the impact on the environment has been enormous, Madam Speaker. In September 2016, the first EPA lease boundary compliance summary report shows non-compliance at 19 lease sites in relation to the Vegetoa. In October 2016, new research by Melbourne University shows that the conditions in Macquarie Harbour in the summer of 2015, under this minister's watch, consistently breached the maximum temperature and minimum oxygen supply that salmon can withstand before they stop eating and develop skin lesions. In October, researchers found that salmon were crushing into the small areas of pens with insufficient oxygen, the parts of the pens that had sufficient oxygen, effectively increasing stocking density 3 to 4 times beyond the limits set by regulations. In October last year, research requested by Minister Rockliff's department to determine whether pollution indicator species, the dorvalid, are an accurate indicator of salmon farm pollution in Macquarie Harbour, and found that dorvalids are an accurate indicator of salmon farm pollution in Macquarie Harbour, but Minister Rockliff does not reintroduce licence conditions relating to dorvalids. In October 2016, Madam Speaker, ABC Four Corners Big Fish is televised, shedding light on the Liberal and Labor parties' complicity in the mismanagement of the expansion of aquaculture around Tasmania, and in particular Minister Rockliff's mismanagement of fish farming in Macquarie Harbour, which was now facing ecological collapse. It airs scathing criticism from Huon Aquaculture CEO Francis Bender that Minister Rockliff had ignored repeated warnings and concerns about the health of Macquarie Harbour and the impacts of overstocking. In February 2016, legal disaster strikes for this government and it's on this minister's head. Huon Aquaculture launches legal action against the state government and Minister Rockliff's department and others in the Supreme Court and the Australian Federal Court. The move was triggered by an IMAS report which found that almost all marine life was dead for at least 500 metres around Tassal's Franklin Lease, the closest lease to the World Heritage Area. And recall, Madam Speaker, Mark Ryan, Tassal CEO's admission last year that the Franklin Lease had contaminated theToire, and then a short time thereafter a retraction from the company. Madam Speaker, we still have not got to the bottom of that. Ms Dawkins has written to the Federal Environment Minister about the implications under the EPBC Act and the impact on theToire, and if the Minister is going to get up and respond to our want of confidence in him, he might address that issue. The legal claim against Minister Rockliff's department includes a failure to comply with the 2012 conditions of the fish farm expansion, namely to ensure the threatened Maugean skate and the World Heritage Area would not be impacted. Following the launch of the legal action, Tassal is ordered to destock Franklin Lease by the end of February. It ultimately doesn't destock until mid-April, 148 days after it was ordered to begin destocking the lease, with the Liberals and the Minister indicating they would not enforce the order despite strong evidence of damage to theToire. In May this year, Madam Speaker, it's revealed that the Federal Environment Department is investigating whether salmon farm operators have broken the law if they've breached the conditions of the agreements they signed with the federal government in 2012. Madam Speaker, by failing to properly regulate fish farm operations in Macquarie Harbour, Minister Rockliff has exposed operators to a maximum penalty of $1.8 million per breach if found guilty. Excuse me. Huon Aquaculture argues Tasmanian taxpayers should foot the bill if any fines are imposed. Given it was Minister Rockliff's failure to set appropriate biomass caps and enforce their state and federal laws that resulted into damage to the World Heritage Area. Madam Speaker, Minister Rockliff has repeatedly tried to distance himself from the disaster unfolding in Macquarie Harbour, handballing the mess to the EPA and then telling us the EPA is completely independent and their decision-making has nothing to do with the Minister's office. Yet during budget estimates, he was unable to explain why the EPA director was being babysat by his head of office at a meeting with Ms Woodruff where the director was explaining his most recent determination for Macquarie Harbour. Madam Speaker, on this minister's watch, there has been a litany of failure to deal with this industry, and we get platitudes about sustainability and about getting the balance right. This minister, the Liberals in government, have most certainly not got the balance right because they want to double the size of the industry by 2030, and yet they have no idea how to do that sustainably. They talk about world's best practice, Madam Speaker, when in fact Tasmania is about 20 years behind world's best practice. Why isn't this government advocating for a closed-loop system or far offshore farming, Madam Speaker? Why is this minister and this government allowing the industry to pollute Tasmania's marine environment and enabling them to pollute Tasmania's marine environment through poor regulation, Madam Speaker?
This is your price.
Madam Speaker, you know that. You know that. The truth you are telling has struck a chord when the Liberals start to attack you. You know that. And you know that. The Liberals know that they're in strife here because over on the East Coast, in Orford and Triabunna and Spring Beach, up and down the East Coast, there is fury, absolute fury. Well, I know that.
Order.
Minister Hidding, you move in quite closed circles, but there is fury at the decision to approve a 20-year-old lease. We have no confidence in this minister whatsoever.
Premier has the call.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order. The Premier has the call.
I said yesterday it was the most embarrassing day I had witnessed for an opposition in the 15 years I've been in this place. Well, now it has become the most embarrassing week for Labor and the Greens parties that I've seen in 15 years in this place. The opposition parties are literally becoming a caricature of themselves. I mean, this is an extraordinary demonstration of political playtime by Labor and the Greens. It is another illustration of how they choose to use their time, engaging in political playtime just before they go off on winter holidays. That's exactly what this is about, Madam Speaker. It is the final session of political playtime by Labor and the Greens before they go off on holidays. And the only purpose it serves is to firmly demonstrate the contrast in priorities between this government and the Labor-Green coalition. And we are a government that does believe in sustainable industry, unashamedly believes in that. We do believe in our primary industry sectors. We do believe in them because they support and sustain Tasmanian businesses, Tasmanian jobs. They are important to our brand and they are important to our state's fabric, Madam Speaker. We do also believe in stronger environmental protections, and we are enforcing them. These are things that didn't actually happen, ironically, didn't actually happen under a Labor-Green government, because it is a Liberal government that has established the EPA, the Independent Environmental Protection Authority, which the member for Denison now denigrates, when in the past she's used it as a political weapon. She now seeks to undermine it. But we've established the independent EPA to be the monitoring authority for Tasmania's aquaculture industry. We do believe in policy to be based on science and facts. Normally it's the Greens who claim themselves to be the holders of the high moral ground in that regard. But on this occasion, of course, when political opportunity presents, when it suits them, they want to undermine the EPA. They want to undermine the independent expertise-based Marine Farming Planning Review Panel. A body that was in fact established or was in operation under the former Labor-Greens government. It was good enough for them then, but now they want to undermine it. They want to undermine the EPA. They want to undermine the science and evidence which is informing government policy decision-making.
Order.
They want to put all of that. They want to put all of that.
Order. I warn the honourable member for Franklin, Ms Woodruff.
Taking responsibility and taking for control, as this minister has done, for developing a sustainable industry plan for aquaculture. And I want to point to the fact that it is under a Liberal government that we have increased protections for the environment. We've established the EPA as the independent monitoring agency for the salmon industry. We have increased the penalties for any company that might breach the laws. Now, these are things that have happened under a Liberal government, a majority Liberal government. They didn't happen under a Labor-Green minority government. When the Greens were at the heart of that government, they took no action to do the things that we have done in government, and under the Labor-Green government as well. This is a very important fact. The initial biomass earmarked for the expansion in Macquarie Harbour was 29,000 tonnes. That's what it was under Labor and the Greens. They conveniently forget that now, of course, but they were in government with Labor at the time. It was 29,000 tonnes. They have the gall to accuse this government of not taking control. Well, let's have a look at what has happened.
Order.
The EPA, as I say, established the biomass in the harbour.
Order. I've just warned the member for Franklin.
12,000 tonnes. Under the Greens, it was 29,000. Under us, it's 12,000. You say we're not taking action, we're not in control. Well, that demonstrates that, Madam Speaker, to put it into context, it means that in a single growing cycle, the Tassal biomass allocation will go to from 8,000 tonnes to 2,000 tonnes. That is a huge reduction. But no, the Greens assert in this flawed, baseless no-confidence motion that this minister and this government hasn't got control and hasn't taken action to respond to environmental concerns. Well, the figures speak for themselves. The action speaks for itself, and it's taken a Liberal government to do it.
Order. Look, the member for Denison has made her contribution, and I've already warned the member for Franklin for constant interjections.
It must be galling for the Greens members because they are shown to be all talk but no action. They had an opportunity when in government to do these things, but they didn't. The only thing they do, and consistently so, is use their words to damage confidence, to damage and scare communities, to do what they can to use their networks to damage Tasmania's brand. They've done it for years with respect to the forest industry. We always saw this day coming when they do it to Tasmania's aquaculture industry. They use their words very effectively and very skillfully to damage Tasmanian businesses, but they didn't take action when they were in government. All talk and no action. And they won't use their words to explain why it is now that they want to undermine the EPA. Why it is they want to undermine the Marine Farming Review Panel, which was established during their government, or was in place during their term of government. But they're happy to do it now because they are pure political opportunists. And they'll do it again in government if they're given the chance to form another Labor-Green minority government, because that is in their DNA.
As you know.
Now, we have taken control, and I want to point to the strong leadership taken by the minister. He has taken control. He has been a minister who has overseen a dramatic growth and increase in the salmon industry, which we support. He has, though, responded to environmental concerns and considerations by increasing regulation. He is developing an industry plan that is being extensively consulted and will put at its centre the best interests of the state, the interests of the industry, interests of communities, interests of the environment, and do so in a way that is balanced and that is sustainable. The option that's been presented by the Greens is not, because it will lead to the closing down of another industry, which they'd be happy to see happen. And I make the point, the member for Denison claims that it's industry that's leading government. I've pointed to the fact that we've actually taken significant action which has had an impact on Tasmanian salmon companies. I point to the fact that we've been criticised for the strong decisions we've taken, including by industry. Well, they're actually, in some instances, taking legal action against the government. So I think it's a little rich to say that industry is leading this government and we're doing whatever they want when they have been critical, in some instances, of what we've done. In some cases have pursued legal action, which we will strenuously defend, I have to say, but to seriously try and make the claim that we're doing whatever industry want when they're responding in such a fashion is utter nonsense. We're determined to find a balance, and we're determined to make decisions on the basis of what is in the best interests of our state. We are well aware of concerns at Oakhampton Bay. Yes, it relates to a lease that was established in 1998. A long time before this government. It was in place under the former Labor-Green government. And I ask again the question, what did the Greens do about the lease at Oakhampton Bay when they were in government? Did you move to rescind that? Did you? No, they didn't. They had an opportunity to do something in government, but once again were shown to be all talk and no action. Well, Madam Speaker, we are conscious of community concerns, and that's why we have taken action. The minister who, on the one hand, claims that how dare he handball, as she says, environmental protections and monitoring to the EPA. I mean, what an extraordinary proposition. Of course you'd do it. You're the expert, aren't you? You'd do it if you were in government. Well, I think being hands-off from the independent assessment of Tasmania's environment and indeed the monitoring of this particular industry is something that's best handled by the EPA. So we're quite happy to do that. But we've taken control to respond in the ways I've already outlined and did so many months ago, but in the last week or so have taken decisive action with respect to Oakhampton Bay, to banning the salmon industry in the Mercury Passage, We respect the fact that there are community concerns. This is in the context and against the backdrop of a statewide industry development plan which will be released in due course. It demonstrates a government working with industry, listening to communities, making its policy decisions based on science, evidence, facts, the sort of thing the Greens used to claim that they were the moral high ground for, but in this case are cynically abandoning for pure political opportunity. And we will, Madam Speaker, respond not only to community concerns, to environmental considerations, but also in a way that does collaborate with industry. And we do not make apologies for working closely with industry. It's one of the reasons why you look at the state's economy now, the strongest it's been for years, our unemployment rate down to the national average, business confidence at high levels. Under a Labor Green minority government, the state's economy was in recession. The budget was in deficit. The unemployment rate went over 8%. I mean, that's the difference between life under a majority Liberal government and what it was like only a few years ago under a Labor Green minority one. And the message we're hearing from at least those who were at the heart of that government, and that was the Greens party, because if you look at the forest policy ultimately adopted by Labor, it was one that had been long held by the Greens party. And that's what will happen again. That's what will happen again if, heaven forbid, the Tasmanian people deliver another hung parliament for the state. What we will get is a new end the wars in aquaculture arrangement. It'll be a round table to try and end those wars. That's exactly what will happen. We'll have an aquaculture.
What are you saying, the community shouldn't be at the table?
Order.
The community shouldn't be at the table?
Order.
Say a peace deal. I was trying to think how you described it, a peace deal. There'll be an aquaculture peace deal under Labor and the Greens.
Order.
That's exactly what happened last time.
Order. The House will come to order.
Again because we have a weakened, inexperienced Labor Party which could form a coalition with the Greens if a hung parliament is delivered, heaven forbid, and it'll be the aquaculture industry.
On a point of order, the member for Denison.
Well, point of order, Madam Speaker. The Premier seems to misunderstand his history and the law. In the
No,
event
that's
of a
not a
balance
point
of
of
power,
order.
the Governor will call
It's
the
not a
Premier.
point of order. The Premier will resume in what little time remains.
I will do everything in my power to stop it happening again. And it was the forest industry that was the victim last time.
Order.
The irony of the vanquished chirping up.
Order. The House will cease their constant interjections and yelling.
The Labor Party who delivered the worst result for the Labor Party in a century has the gall to interject. And if anyone thinks that the new Leader of the Opposition will have any greater power or ability to stop what the Greens did last time, they can think again.
Order. I
They can
warn the
think
honourable
again.
member for Franklin, Ms Giddings, who before almost interjected from out of her seat as well. Members have been ejected for that. Premier will
If
resume.
I had $1 for every time she told me how weak I am, I just remind myself and the people of Tasmania how she didn't have the strength to stand up to the Greens when in government. And this will happen again. And that's my warning today. As the Parliament once again embroils itself in political playtime by Labor and the Greens, while we want to deliver our budget and see it pass this Parliament, which is a substantive thing to have happen, Madam Speaker. It's just not a minor inconvenience. Perhaps it might be for the Greens. But for those who want to see the record investment in health pass, for those who want to see programs and initiatives to get young Tasmanians into jobs, 7,600 of them, with a government that will back business, that will back industry unashamedly. If anyone wants to stand in the way of a record investment in health which will secure and fund 106 new hospital beds, 350 more health professionals. If anyone wants to stand in the way of the work we are doing to protect Tasmania's most vulnerable, those at risk of family violence, those in our child protection system, if anyone wants to stand in the way of us delivering our budget today, which will reduce cost of living pressures, reduce cost of doing business pressures in this state and maintain the direction we're heading in, well, I say be it on your heads, because this is our priority, Madam Speaker. What we've witnessed today is another political stunt. It is political playtime. We're now seeing the Greens abandon their principles. No longer can they say they believe in independent environmental assessment by the EPA. No longer can they make that claim. You have declared no confidence in the EPA today, and it is a shame on you, Madam Speaker. But we'll defend the EPA. We will be its strongest defenders, and we will defend the Minister as well. Yes, and we're getting complaints from the Leader of the Opposition, who spent yesterday, as part of the Labor-Green coalition, moving a similarly puerile and pointless no-confidence motion. Well, it's just Groundhog Day as far as we're concerned, and it's a demonstration of your priorities. You're not interested in the things we are.
For Denison is O'Connor. Constant interjections.
You've well established you're not interested in
Premier's
the
time
same
has
priorities as
expired.
ours. We won't be distracted by
Leader
it.
of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I welcome the opportunity to speak on this motion, but make the point that the Leader of Government Business has gagged this debate. Absolutely gagged this debate on a very serious matter of a want of confidence in one of your colleagues. So much so, Madam Speaker, that he has broken the record today, gagging the debate to less than an hour. Minister, that goes on about records all the time, where you can hold this record and you shouldn't be proud of it. You have gagged this debate, and in the process of doing so, you've just again highlighted that this government does not like to be held to account. There's no transparency on that side. In dictating the time for the debate today, Madam Speaker, in dictating the time for today, they've claimed that they don't want to see the budget blocked. There is only 2 hours left for debate on budget matters. There is a blue that has 3 other matters for government business. There's plenty of time today to have a robust discussion, and the government is shutting down the opportunity for debate, gagging speakers, and in doing so, the motion that the Leader of Government Business moved, the amendment that he moved, not only gags debate, you gag your own minister. Look at the time. You've given 15 minutes to the Shadow Minister, the Leader of Greens, Ms O'Connor. You've given 15 minutes to the Premier. You've given 15 minutes to me. That takes us to 12:25. You've gagged the debate at 12:30. You've given your Minister 5 minutes to defend himself.
That's all you
Oh
need.
dear!
That's all you need.
Oh dear me!
Order. The House will come to order immediately.
Madam Speaker, they've stuffed this up. The Leader of Government Business has gagged the debate to such an extent that he doesn't even give his own minister more than 5 minutes to speak on a motion to defend himself.
Yep.
How disgraceful.
How about you mention
How
salmon?
disgraceful.
Have a go.
Madam Speaker, this is a very serious motion. It is a very serious motion. And that is why I think that the Minister deserves more time to defend himself. So I won't take the full 15-minute allocation.
Order. I'm warning members on my right.
What if this debate, Madam Speaker, to provide an opportunity for the Minister to explain himself and to defend himself against a very serious allegation raised by the Greens members, a want of confidence in the Minister, and there's good reason for it. I was on the estimates hearing for the Minister when we were discussing matters to do with the salmon industry, Madam Speaker, where the Minister did talk about the ban that he wants to place on the Mercury Passage, which might highlight is just a policy. There's absolutely no regulation or legislation to enforce that. It was a video he released on his Facebook page the night before estimates hearings, Madam Speaker. Why doesn't he legislate to ban finfish farming in the Mercury Passage?
He's going to.
The Labor Party will. The Labor Party will. But yours is just a policy at the moment. You talked about being tough on salmon regulation. There's no doubt that this industry is feeling the lack of leadership by this government, and there is a want of confidence in the community in this minister and the way that he's managed this issue. There's no doubt at all that the community is very concerned at the moment about this minister's handling of his portfolio and the ability that he has demonstrated in the effectiveness that he's demonstrated in managing the portfolio and providing a robust regulatory regime to make sure the salmon industry can continue to operate sustainably in Tasmania. That's what the Labor Party wants. We're very big supporters of the salmon industry, but it must operate sustainably and it must operate in a way that ensures that those jobs in regional communities can be sustained and it must operate in a way that is consistent with community expectations. When the government comes in here and talks stuff about regulation, talks stuff about penalties, they would do very well to reflect on the debate that was held in the estimates budget hearings last week, Madam Speaker, where when we asked the Minister, asked him about the regulations that he claims to have strengthened. He said, and I quote, "Ensuring regulations keep pace with industry expansion and maintain community and market confidence, which is vital to achieve sustainable growth." We agree with that, Madam Speaker. That's very important. When we asked about where those regulations are that do such things, they haven't been drafted yet. They haven't been drafted yet. So the regulations that the Minister refers to and is talking tough on salmon regulation haven't even been presented to the Parliament yet. They do not exist. There's not a framework that exists to apply those regulations that the Minister references. But then he talked about penalties. He talked about the robust penalty program, the penalties that can be enforced on anybody who breaches. And when we asked how many penalty units have been applied, guess what the answer was, Madam Speaker? Zero. None. Absolutely none. So you talk tough, you've got strong regulation, you've got tough penalties, and reality is they're just words. They're just words.
For breaking the law,
how is that going to provide confidence to the community?
Want us to fine people?
Because the facts of the matter are, Madam Speaker, the facts of the matter are that this government's all talk and no action. And they think that's going to be enough to satisfy people. You think that's going to be enough to give confidence to the industry. They're looking to you to provide leadership to them right now. This government's been absent for the last 3 years. There is very clearly a lack of leadership when it comes to regulation of the salmon industry, a lack of leadership to support the salmon industry to continue to grow and expand sustainably, to provide those jobs in regional communities where they need them. This is a very important issue, Madam Speaker. There are a number of people right across Tasmania and regional communities who rely on the salmon industry to support them. And the salmon industry relies on having a government that is able to provide the leadership to make sure that they can be regulated and those regulations are enforced, to make sure that they can operate sustainably, to make sure that their markets have confidence that the products that they are providing have been done in a way that is absolutely and entirely consistent with community expectations. And right now, Madam Speaker, there is concern in community. Right now there's concern in industry. And that all falls on the shoulder of this minister, who for the last 3 years has done nothing. The policy announcements this government's made have been entirely reactionary. That video he put up on his Facebook page last week was a political stunt. There's no leadership here. It's all reactionary. There's all reactionary actions by this government. The Labor Party is a very strong supporter of the salmon industry. We are very strong supporter of those jobs, and we are worried this government is letting them down, and we are worried this government is letting down the people of Tasmania in all of those communities who share those waterways, who want to make sure that the environment is as important as the industry, and the industry shares that concern too. There's absolutely no doubt about that, Madam Speaker. I can indicate that we will not be supporting the motion of a want of confidence in the minister, but this is a warning for this government. You have to take this issue more seriously. You have to take this issue more seriously. There is absolutely no doubt that the community interest in this is only going to increase, and your lack of action is going to lead to further problems. You can't just be all about talk. You've got to actually take some action, provide the leadership the industry wants. And in light of the fact the debate finished at 12:30 and the fact the minister had been gagged by his own leader of government business because the time limits put on this debate in the interest of providing transparency...
Order. Look, I warn the House. This behaviour can't continue, particularly from members on my right.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know this government doesn't like to be accountable. We know that it relies heavily on being secretive and hiding behind other members to make sure that nobody holds them to account for their portfolio responsibilities. As a parliament, I think we should expect higher standards. And as a parliament, we expect that the minister should speak now and explain his actions.
The Honourable Minister for... On a point of order.
Thank you.
Point
of order, Madam Speaker. On the rotation, it is clearly Ms Woodruff's opportunity to speak. It is not
and on what standing order
that the minister...
On what standing order are you ordering me to rotate around the House. Bearing in mind I take the member that stands, as I see it, and the member who called out, Madam Speaker, was the Minister, and that's what I'm basing my decision on.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Just on the point of order, on the rotation, it would ordinarily
There
be
is
the
no
Greens
rotation
members'
in this House.
speech, it's not our fault that the
I've
Liberals
just
tried
ruled
to
that
gag
there
the
is no
Minister.
rotation in this House. The Honourable Minister.
Hear, hear. Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I welcome the opportunity to address the very important issues contained in the motion. Now, Madam Speaker, when people say that we have not taken leadership on this issue and done nothing, they are completely and utterly wrong. The evidence does not support that, Madam Speaker, quite clearly. Now, if you are going to criticise the government between 2010 and 2014 and labelled that government as a do-nothing government when it comes to strengthening the regulation of salmon, then you would be right, because the Labor and Green government did nothing when it comes to salmon regulation, Madam Speaker, and strengthening salmon regulation and providing independence when it comes to the regulation, Madam Speaker. Well, I'll talk about 29,000 tonnes, because that was the biomass limit under your government.
Liar.
Under your government, Madam
Liar.
Speaker. In fact,
That's not true.
Macquarie Harbour, under Labor and the Green government,
Order.
29,000 tonnes was initially earmarked for expansion under the previous government.
Order. Look, need I explain to the House? This is a motion of no confidence. It is the most serious motion or action that any member can take in this House. And given that the motion is being made against the Minister who has the call, allow the Minister to address these serious allegations. There will be ejections if that is not followed. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This government has clearly demonstrated a balanced approach when it comes to this industry. We support this industry. We know the Greens don't, okay? But when I hear Ms White on her feet talking about her support for the salmon industry, I just remind myself of how many times the Labor Party said they supported the forest industry prior to the 2010 election. And what was clearly evident between 2010 and 2014, Madam Speaker, they absolutely reneged on any previous support for the forest industry, did the forest industry over, and hundreds of people's jobs went down the drain. This government will not allow that to happen to the salmon industry. We value the 5,200 jobs that are in the industry, the $700 million annually that this industry provides.
It's a disgrace.
Sustainability, balance is the key here, Madam Speaker. You provided none of it. And that's why we see utter hypocrisy when it comes to the mover of this motion today. And they really got the fire in the belly, Madam Speaker, when we did have the announcement of 99% ban in Mercury Passage because you're out.
Order. Look, I don't want to have to make an ejection, but I will if this continues. That is the House's final warning. Don't say you haven't been warned. The Minister will resume.
Because it exposed the Greens for the mistruths, the fear-mongering that's been going on in the East Coast community for your own political advantage. Your own political advantage. That is very clear. So why wouldn't we make it very clear, Madam Speaker, given we have been discussing with industry the concept of no-grow zones around Tasmania, where we did make it very clear when it comes to Oakhampton Bay that 1% of Mercury Passage can be used to grow finfish and 99% cannot, providing certainty to the community, Madam Speaker, and certainty to industry. And if there's one thing that's a hallmark of this government, it is providing that certainty to industry.
because sovereign risk matters to a Liberal government. I know it doesn't matter to a Green Labor government. I know it doesn't matter to you,
Order.
Madam Speaker, but sovereign risk is important when it comes to a Liberal government to provide that certainty to industry. We recognise there's been a finfish lease in Oakhampton Bay since 1998, Madam Speaker, reviewed in 2007, Madam Speaker, and we provided the community with the opportunity to have their say, despite what the Greens claim. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been 6,000 submissions into the Marine Farm Review Panel.
You didn't listen to any of them.
Madam
They
Speaker.
had anything to say about
Community had their say,
wreck fishing,
and we continue to listen.
commercial fishing.
That's why in February, Madam Speaker,
It was a
we
shame.
launched the Sustainable Industry Growth Plan. And when we launched that plan, Madam Speaker, it was telling. Deathly silence from the Labor Party. We saw editorials, Madam Speaker, in where is the Labor Party on the salmon industry, Madam Speaker? Nowhere. Bob each way stuff, Madam Speaker.
Order.
Industry will not get certainty from
Order.
whatever the Labor Party say, Madam Speaker, because they know what the Labor Party said prior to 2010 and how they comprehensively did over the forest industry, sending hundreds of jobs down the drain in rural and regional Tasmania because they prefer to be in government with the Greens. Very simple, Madam Speaker. So what you've got from this government is a sensible and balanced approach, Madam Speaker, and that's what the Sustainable Industry Growth Plan will deliver. Certainty. There will be no grow zones earmarked around Tasmania, providing that certainty for industry and the community, because we recognise the importance of the tourism and the salmon industry coexisting for the benefit of all. Jobs in the tourism industry, jobs in the salmon industry. It can happen. It can happen, Madam Speaker. They can coexist. We recognise the importance of social and community amenity, Madam Speaker. That's important to us, and we know it's important to the community, and we know it's important to recreational fishing community as well, of which we, of course, highly value. And our policies and our support for tarfish bear that out. Now, Madam Speaker, quite clearly, the evidence supports the fact that this government has shown very strong leadership when it comes to this issue.
Order.
The independence of the EPA now on the entire supply chain. The authorisation of masked officers, Madam Speaker, when it comes to marine debris, as an example, Madam Speaker. Another policy we're very proud of, strengthening penalty provisions, Madam Speaker, of which there were none, as we discovered, introduced between 2010 and 2014, Madam Speaker. We are managing the very challenging issue of Macquarie Harbour, Madam Speaker, and the Environment Protection Authority are doing that independently. That's why now the biomass is 12,000 tonne, Madam Speaker. Sensible reform in the industry, providing certainty, Madam Speaker, particularly for the community and indeed for industry. So, Madam Speaker, this is a government that will not sell out the salmon industry, but will listen to the community.
Order.
Involve the community in the future growth and expansion of the industry. That is why we have the Salmon Industry Growth Plan, Madam Speaker, which will have community consultation and input, openness, transparency. But I do know, Madam Speaker, when it comes to the weak arguments of the Greens, when they've got nothing, what do they always do? They go on the attack, personal attack.
Sorry.
The Honourable
integrity.
The Honourable
The
Minister's
integrity.
time has
Madam Speaker.
expired. The Honourable Member for Franklin's Woodruff.
Madam Speaker, that the Minister's, everything about what the Minister says will be taken and read in great detail by people on the East Coast, and it vindicates all of their fears. It vindicates all of their concerns. It demonstrates there is nothing that this government will do, nothing it will do, no evidence will be received, no matter how many dead zones there are in Macquarie Harbour, no matter how many indicators of World Heritage value damage there is, no matter how many legal cases against this government, against the EPA, against the federal government, no matter how much mockery and ridicule is rained on this Liberal government and the hollow support by the Labor
Time
Party.
for debate has expired. The question
There's
is
nothing that
question
will
is
change
that the motion
this government's position.
Sit down.
Nothing.
I've called time. Question is that the motion be agreed to. All those that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Division required. Ring the bells.